Hi, I wanted to share my timeshare nightmare with you and to let you know how I got out of it in case it's helpful for someone else. Um, in 2004, my husband and I bought a timeshare in Orlando, Florida. They used their usual high-pressure sales tactics. They said the presentation was to last only 45 minutes. They gave us the grand tour. They told us that we could go anywhere at any time in the world at a steep discount to the otherwise unwise consumer. They told us it would be really easy to rent for a profit. Our sales rep at the resort said the resort would pay for itself due to the increasing price of vacationing. He called the purchase an investment opportunity that would increase in value. He said that it would be really easy to sell for a profit. And best of all, they said they would buy it back from us at any time should we no longer wish to own it or if our circumstances changed. Basically, 95% of what they told us was total crap and just blatant misrepresentation. The presentation actually lasted 6 hours, and at the end we were exhausted and starving, and we did say no on several occasions. Each time we said no, the price got lower and the incentive package got more extravagant. Finally, at 6 hours, we decided that whatever it took to get out of there, we were just going to do that, take it home, and figure it out. So unfortunately, we walked away with a timeshare. And furthermore, we did own the timeshare for, quite a number of years after that. And my husband was a student during some of those years, so vacationing was really not an option. Yet we continued to pay our rising maintenance fees. In 2011, we decided that to actually use our vacation, so we went to our home resort in Orlando, and it was not a great experience. We went during a really slow time of the year, and we were promised that when we went, we would stay at the unit that we actually purchased, but that didn't happen, even though we could have easily. There was hardly anyone at the resort. They put us in a unit across the street with a view of the parking lot, just not what we expected. We no longer wished to own the timeshare, so we decided to see if the resort would buy it back from us. When I contacted them, they pretty much laughed at me and asked me what I was talking about because they don't do buybacks. And then I said, all right, well, what if I just give it to you? And they still didn't want it back. They didn't want to accept it. And so I started researching the developer, and I got a name. And I wrote them a letter, and I outlined what I believed to be deceptive trade practices, and I requested they release us from our contract. After several weeks, I did receive a response, and they generally ignored all of my concerns and suggested that I simply find a vacation rental company so that if I wasn't going to vacation, at least I could get money from someone else who was vacationing. They said they were never going to release us from the contract, and they took the opportunity to remind us of all the things they would do to us if we did not continue to pay our maintenance fees. So I did what every timeshare owner has to do. I started filing complaints. I filed a complaint with the Florida Better Business Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission and the Attorney General, all of which yielded no results. So I began researching ways out of timeshares. And I learned that it was very difficult, and there's basically no way out, no real easy way out. Even death doesn't get you out because it simply goes to your heirs. So I became really angry and desperate, and this is where the nightmare really began. I'm embarrassed to say that I was the one that contacted the timeshare transfer company in 2012. They promised us wonderful things. The process would take about 6 months. During that time, they would pay all of our fees. 16 months later, they still had not transferred our file, transferred our name out of the resort. And it wasn't until February 2014 when I received the maintenance bill from our resort. And the transfer company refused to pay it. We discovered they were completely fraud. not only did they refuse to pay it, but they did not have an estimated time that it would actually be completed. They said they were having problems with the resort. Wow, what a surprise. And they estimated that it would take about 2 to 4 years to get the process completed. And all that time we're paying those dues that they promised to pay. So I did further research, and then, of course, I discovered that the whole company was completely fraudulent. It's one of approximately 22 companies owned by David McMillan. They're basically a bunch of shell companies that are completely fraudulent. Among these companies are Timeshare Relief, Timeshare Cure, Right Choice Transfer, Transfer Smart, Transfer America. Although several of these companies have desist and refrain orders from the California Bureau of Real Estate, they still have a web presence even here on YouTube. So, watch out. But once again, I found myself contacting and complaining with the Better Business Bureau and the Attorney General and the FTC. And even though it doesn't get you anywhere, really, it's really important to complain, especially if you do nothing else. Complain to the Federal Trade Commission because they do have power. And the more people that complain, the more they're aware and that they can actually file a suit against them. So it's really important. It doesn't take a lot of time. Really easy. Go online. Do it. But I still had this damn timeshare. So I began researching other ways out of timeshares, and I discovered that the only really way out is to get an attorney, specifically a consumer protection attorney. This may sound really expensive, but it actually is not. It's actually cheaper than what the transfer title charged us. So I highly recommend you skip all of the transfer companies and go right to the lawyer. We used Mr. John Abrams, and he's also featured here on YouTube. We had a really good experience with them. It did take 11 months for us, but it really depends on how fast they can make contact with your resort and how willing they are to talk to John Abrams or the lawyer. And basically they negotiate with the resort to try to get you out. So, again, we found that was really the only way out. And hopefully you will use a lawyer. Do your research. Contact the Bar Association. Make sure whoever you're working with is who they say they're going to be. And most importantly, don't pay any money up front. When they did just take your money and they walk away, they have no incentive to help you. Lawyers have something to lose. The nefarious timeshare transfer companies do not. And so keep that in mind. And and John Abrams does have a choice that you have to not pay up front. So keep that in mind, and I'm hoping that this is helpful for someone. It really, that was what I'd researched. So good luck, everybody.